Hello, U.S. History 2 students. So what is this elusive learning journal? And why is it 30% of your grade? It's basically a take-home test. And so your first entry should be the most interesting I've learned so far in this class is, and then you write for about 3/4 of the page. Another way to think about each entry is the reason I deserve an A in this class is how thoroughly and thoughtfully I engaged with this topic. And this is a rough format you should follow. You don't have to do it exactly this way, but this is how I would do it. I'll show you some student examples in probably a follow-up video of how you might do it. But start with here's why I'm interested in the topic and write a few sentences to show that you know what you're talking about. Use the right vocabulary and convince me that you have done a little bit of research. List your initial questions and then say what you found out when you research your questions. You should probably summarize your research and cite your sources. And when you cite your sources, don't put them all at the end. Be specific about what came from where. And if you just put them all at the end, you're sort of expecting me to figure out what came from which of the 3 sources that you cited. And I don't want you to do it that way. I want you to be more precise about where you got various pieces of information. And then you should end with, here are some additional questions I have now to show that I'm really engaged in this topic. And I have these questions now. If I had infinite time and weren't taking other classes, I would research these other questions. But this is all I got for now, Mr. Goldberg, and here's why I should have an A. Underneath that first entry is your second entry. Here's another reason why I deserve an A. Here's how I engage with this second topic, and then do the same thing as in number 1, and then a third reason. You get the idea. Below that, you should have a reverse chronological entry for every day of class and every assignment. And it's okay to have some summary notes, but the main thing I want to see is you asking questions and showing how you're engaging and doing research with all the things that we're learning. You should be finding images on occasion. That's not hard to do. You should be able to find some videos. You don't have to find videos for everything, but maybe once a week find a video that connects to what we're learning. And you're telling me that I can tell by looking at your reverse chronology of notes that this student is learning a lot in this class. So let's take a look at one student's learning journal so far. This is a really good example. So here's this student's learning journal, and they got interested in 9/11. And so the most interesting I've learned so far is about 9/11. You can hit pause and read this. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can tell that this student talked to her mom and did some interviews. And so building off that assignment we did where you interviewed someone who lived through 9/11. And then they did additional research, just a quick Google search, things you didn't know about 9/11. And here's what this student found out. And then something that shocked me was people in building 2 weren't allowed to evacuate. And then they also learned this, and they learned about the Homeland Security Advisory System. And this is a bit more than you need to do, but that's a great first entry. I can tell the student is really interested in 9/11. The one thing it could add is a couple questions, but frankly, this one doesn't need that because it's really strong. But just, I'm sure the student has some questions. You just put them here. Questions I have now are, and there's lots of questions you could ask certainly about 9/11. And then if you look below here, I'll leave this for that student. And then the next most interesting thing I learned so far is about the Great White Fleet, and then why they think it's interesting. And then they need to do a little more research and cite their sources below here. But this one here is a great example of a first entry in a learning journal. And then this is good examples of a reverse chronology. So most recently we talked to Professor David Cole from Georgetown. You probably didn't have your computers with you, but this is something that shows the student at least started to engage with this, and they might expand on this a little bit. But then Wednesday, should we be amending the Constitution more? We saw that clip from Iowa looking at flag burning. How long Texas versus Johnson took to get to the court. So you can tell that this student is asking questions and engaging. How long do justices stay on the court? They serve for life. What would bad behavior look like? This is all evidence that this student has engaged in the material. And so your note should look something like that. If you have questions, let me know, but this is 5 minutes on what a good learning journal should look like. One last point about your learning journal. Your writing should be clear. You should start sentences with capital letters. You should spell words correctly. And if you see squiggles, like this one here, you should look at the word to make sure that it is spelled correctly. And this "its" is squiggled because that's the way you say plural, possessive "its." So that would be like the cat scratched its eye. It should be unfortunate for the cat, but there you go. You're trying to say "it is," and so that will get rid of your squiggle. But whether you're using squiggle tools or reading the stuff out loud, make sure that your writing is clear and you're expressing yourself the way you meant to express yourself. All right. Happy working in your learning journals.